So now that you've kind of got an idea of my personal projects, you might be asking, well, what are you going to do with all those files? Well, I actually sell a pretty substantial amount of art prints as a result. So I've got all that work that I've done between Iceland and Los Angeles and the airports, and it turns out I have a pretty decent sized body of work, and I was lucky enough as a result of all these viral images to be contacted by an art agency who sells prints on my behalf. And I'll be honest, when I was first contacted about an agent for selling art, it made no sense to me. I had no idea how to sell art or where to sell it. But it's actually steadily grown from maybe like 1% of my business to 5% to 10% to 20%. And again, it snowballs every year because I have more and more personal work that they can sell. So now I would say a rather substantial part of my income are these print sales for my personal projects. Now, I was totally skeptical at first. There were people who sold pictures on SmugMug and microstock sites and, like Fine Art America or whatever. And I just didn't see how anyone made any money at it. But it turns out that it's this amazing market. And if you build enough personal work to have an agent contact you or try to approach a gallery to sell your work, you can actually make a real big amount of money selling these prints. So let's just kind of discuss this market a little bit and how important it is to have that body of work and that sort of viral traction that these personal projects bring. No one is just going to stumble across a landscape photographer's website and think, I'm going to spend $3,000 on a print. But if you have a body of work that shows consistent personal work, that shows work that is consistently popular, that shows a real mastery of craft, there is definitely a market that you can run into the many, many thousands of dollars selling these prints. But the real theme here is that you have got to have a body of work that is different and interesting, and you're never going to get that by only doing work for clients who are paying you for commercial jobs. You have got to strike out a little bit on your own and do some of these personal projects to get there. So let's take a minute and talk about fine art that sells and fine art that doesn't really sell. Now, I have projects that don't really sell at all, but they might be some of my more famous personal works. For example, my Pan Am shots, right? I don't think I've sold those as fine art prints. I've licensed them to books and magazines and stuff like that, but I don't feel like someone's going to blow up a picture of a bunch of people in costume at 70 inches and put it on their wall. Now, on the other hand, there's my Iceland project, and some of those actually are some of my best sellers. Some of them are very minimal, very simple, and almost like stark and contemplative. And that's the kind of stuff that would go in a room, and it wouldn't necessarily draw attention to itself, but it would create almost like a visual background noise to a room that kind of ties things together with color and shape and form, and almost like a nondescript graphic composition. That's the kind of thing that might sell much better than, like I said, people dressed up in costume pretending they were on a plane in 1970. In that vein, my aerial photos have sold very well, again, because they're relatively nondescript, very graphic. The black and white sort of goes with anything, and they have a real sort of romantic quality about them that, again, doesn't scream for attention. They're not very loud images. They're just relatively graphic, quiet, contemplative shots that, again, don't have a real personal connection to anyone. It's not like it's someone's face doing a crazy expression or anything like that. It's something that could blend into the background of a space without screaming for attention. Now think about like a local furniture store or even a big chain furniture store like Restoration Hardware. Think about the art that they're going to have on their walls that sells. It's not going to be, a portrait of someone or a bunch of an overlit house, for example. It's going to be something a little bit abstract, a little bit quiet, maybe subdued color. There's not going to be like hyper-saturated HDR landscapes or anything. It's really going to be the sort of minimal photos that complement a space, that work within a space without, like I said, being super loud and calling to themselves. Now let's talk a little bit about how you get into this. Now most galleries and agencies, they are going to take a cut. It's usually between 40 to 60%. It might vary depending on the sizes or the volume. But the market for this is really obviously art collectors. Now again, you have to have a bit of a name for that. You got to do all that personal work to elevate your brand, to elevate your body of work before art collectors really know who you are. The next might be interior designers and architects. Now, if you're an architectural photographer, it may behoove you to think about making a mailing list of your clients to blast them with some of your personal work that they might want to buy or interior designers might want to buy to put in their projects. One thing that has done pretty well for me is selling art of mine to my interior design clients, especially books. Think about if you've ever shot interior design before. How many people love having books in their house, right? If you did a book or you did a Kickstarter or you did a personal project and made a book of it, you think your interior design clients, given that they like you, would absolutely be more than happy to put your work in with their designs, I think they totally would. So keep in mind, if you're working with these designers, they could be a potential revenue source. Another way to do it is hotels. New hotels definitely need art. And if you're a hotel owner, you have 100 new rooms, you've got to put art in them, right? Where are they going to get that art? So the real sales here aren't from like your friends and family going on your SmugMug or your whatever personal account. It's from people who need to buy art, and that is a good idea of where you could start marketing your fine artwork to. So I personally don't have access to some of these clients. Like I don't have a Rolodex of people worth millions of dollars with disposable income to spend on expensive photography. So that's why it might be worth it to look at agents or galleries who do have the contacts, who can move your work. And honestly, my work isn't cheap. It starts just to get in is like $400, and at the high end, you're up at $5,000 or $6,000 for a print. And I say my average sale is between $800 and $2,000. So there's some substantial money to be made in it. But again, don't think that this is just a matter of sort of taking pretty pictures and walking into a gallery. You do need to have a substantial body of work and a real vision. You've got to have something to say with your photography. You've got to have a style and some subjects that really interest people. All in all, I think I have well over 100 pictures that I regularly sell. And again, they're all similar. They're all a Mike Kelly, if you will. And that's what's really required to get a gallery or an agent or an art buyer to look at you and take you seriously. To wrap up here, a lot of photographers might laugh at the idea and they might say, oh, print sales are dead, or you're crazy, you're not going to make money selling $30 prints. But I kind of agreed with them until I really started to get this body of work. I had some interest from agencies and galleries, and they contacted me. And again, that was all built on the back of personal work, and it's a very lucrative income stream for me now. So what's my end goal here with the print sales? Now, don't get me wrong, I really love photographing architecture. I think architecture is incredible, and it's one of the highest forms of art in the world, and it's so enjoyable for me to photograph that. I love the graphic compositions, I love the process, I love interacting with my clients, but let's be honest, not all jobs are amazing. There are some days where I'm on my hands and knees in a fast food restaurant bathroom making a picture, and I'm just like, this is crazy. So the end goal for me with my personal work and my print sales and all of that is to get that to a point where I'm making plenty of residual income so that I can be extremely selective about which architecture jobs I take on. And I think for me, like, I love going out on location, I love creating images, I love working with clients, but I also love shooting for myself. And I think having a great balance of that is an amazing place to be, so that for me is the end goal.